Game day.
Welcome in to another episode of Cheese Focus Live. We've got a full show planned today. Some football news happening in and around Kansas City. Some new additions to the roster. We're going to talk a little bit about the Cincy game, sort of wrap that bow up before we head off to the Atlanta Falcons for Sunday Night Football. And we will discuss that further on in the week. Plus a couple other small roster things that we wanted to throw in there just to make sure everybody's on the same page. My name's Quentin Morris. We got Thiz running the show in the background, and now a guy who's just ready to shake his celebration bells after the
Yes,
Cincy.
I
I
am.
mean, just ready to scream and shout and let it all out. It's the
That's
old
right.
man JP.
How you doing, man? Are you happy? Are you sad?
I'm
Are
I'm
you
happy.
melancholy? I mean, how are you right now?
Look, I think after you take some time away from the game, did we really expect it to go anything else, any other way, right?
Not
I
really.
mean, that's just the way those games have been played. It's
Yeah.
that's just the way that they are.
You know, let's start off the show with some really good news, in my opinion. And I don't want to rub this in anyone's face, but I'm gonna. Um, Kareem Hunt's back,
Yes, he is.
and I don't remember. I mean, I put this out on Twitter, and I had a couple of big talking heads tear me apart about this over this about 2 years ago. And I knew that he was cleared to come back 2 years ago if needed. They just didn't need him, and he's back. They made it. Everybody flipped out when Hendershot got uh, waived, but that was the plan. They waived him. They put him back on the practice squad. They knew what they were doing. They bring in Kareem Hunt just to get him on the active roster. They had to clear a spot, and that's what they did. He's probably, if things work out and he gets on the active roster pretty quickly, which he may, you might see him in a uniform on Sunday night.
Yeah, that's a quick turnaround to try and accomplish that.
It is.
I know that, like, obviously same head coach, same system, but we are talking of 5 years ago.
I know.
From what so that'll be a very quick turnaround. I think the question is, what are you expecting from him?
I think
What
he's
is
going to
his
be really good in the passing game.
okay?
That's what I think. This is a guy, and thank you, Philip, for giving us this information because you're the stats guru. He's, I think, fifth all time with receiving touchdowns as a running back, with 17 with the Chiefs. In the short time that he was here, he's going to be really good in the passing game.
Well, when I think of Kareem Hunt on the field, I think of that his first game right against New England, and he caught that little wheel route from
Yeah.
Alex Smith, and he just took it to the house.
Yeah.
Like, that's the play that really sticks into my head.
Yeah. Yeah. I know he was unhappy in Cleveland, which who wouldn't be?
Most people are.
Yeah. Um, he wanted to come back to Kansas City while he was there. What's up, Will? And he had the green light to come back, or at least the coaching staff did, to bring him back. He was just not needed at the time. Thankfully, he was sitting at home. He was waiting for the right opportunity, and he got it. And now he's with the Chiefs again. And I'm happy about that. I want him to succeed. He's not done anything wrong since that last mistake 2.5 years ago. And that was more of a, I wish to God I was still with the Chiefs mistake. So, hey, man, I think he's going to do wonders for us. I think he's going to be a huge asset in the passing game. And I think he's going to do well as far as the blocking is concerned. He can block. And he can still run. He can still play the game at a high level.
He did have his lowest average yard per carry of his career last year.
Okay, and who is he playing for though? Let's break that down because I've heard that numerous times. Okay, that team was not really how should I say this without sounding like a dick? Okay, the team was in turmoil. It was not it wasn't in a good situation at all. Um I agree. He is going to play the third. Yeah, 17 career touchdowns, sixth most by a running back since 2017. That's huge. I mean, that's a lot for a guy that went from Kansas City to Cleveland, where he was used sparingly. Um, he was thrown in the mix with Chubb. He got his opportunity last year, but they didn't have the greatest offensive line. And a lot of that was, let's see if we can get the ball downfield. So with this offensive line, with this coaching staff, he's going to do a lot better than he did last year. And I think if when he was with Kansas City, he was like 4.8, 4.9 yards a carry. He was never that high with Cleveland as far as a consistent
Right.
4.8, 4.9. How could you be? I mean, honestly, how could you be? So I love the fact that teams looked at his yards per carry last year and thought, oh, God, he's not any good anymore. I'm glad they thought that. More power to him. Every time a team waives somebody or just doesn't consider them because of what they did in the past or what they did the year before, they never look at the coaching staff. They don't look at the offensive line. They don't look at this. They don't look at that. They just look at the stats. The stat, in my opinion, the eye test is a hell lot more a hell lot more productive, and it gives you more of a sense of that player versus what a stat can be. You have to look at the all around picture. You can't just look at, oh well, he only had 3.5 yards a carry or 3.8 yards a carry or whatever it is last year, so he's not any good anymore. Because that's really not the case. I mean, Saquon Barkley didn't look the greatest at the end of his run with the Giants. Look at him now; he's looking pretty good. So
Yeah, him and his Butterfingers.
yeah, and he had nine. But let's talk about that. He didn't he have Philip? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Kareem had 9 touchdowns last year. Is that right? Three. I mean, He had low yards per carry comparative to other people, but still had 9 touchdowns. If I'm not mistaken, it's pretty damn good. Not going to complain. Happy he's back. Glad he's got the opportunity to get a ring. He deserves a ring. He really does. He deserves a ring. He's a great player. He did wonders for us. I think he's paid his dues.
Yeah, I think the overall sentiment is that, everybody deserves a second chance, and especially because the amount of time that has passed
Yeah.
between, from when it happened. Um, I think a lot of people are just like, let's just move on with our lives.
Hmm.
So I've got no look, this signing, I have no problem with. I think that you're making the best out of a bad situation. Um, this was a thin room to begin with.
It was
I think in hindsight, I think we talked about this during the draft process, but it definitely feels like you need to look back at this and realize that maybe you should have invested more into the running back position other than just getting Carson Steele back here. But look, those are off-season problems. This is a now problem. So what are you going to do about it now? And
correct.
Kareem Hunt just kind of fell into your lap a little bit. Um, like I said, this is a guy that he does know Andy Reid. Obviously, he knows the system. And
Hmm.
while that was 5 years ago, I can't imagine that, a ton of the verbiage has changed. I can't imagine that a lot of it is, completely different. So if you were to look at the other available running backs right now, he's got to head up on all of those guys just because he spent time in the building, and he knows Andy Reid and the expectations that Andy Reid brings, from as a coach. So yeah, I think that it makes a lot of sense for Kansas City to do it, and it makes sense for Kareem Hunt to do it because as of right now, the guy was just sitting on his couch. Nobody had called him in to do a workout or anything like that. So I think this is just sort of a perfect marriage and a perfect situation, for better or for worse on how we ended up here. Here we are. What are we going to do about it?
Correct. So let's put this in perspective. 2017, he had 1,327 yards with Kansas City, 4.9 average, 8 touchdowns. 2018, less yardage, 181 carries, 824, 4.6, and 7 touchdowns. Cleveland, 2019, 43 carries, 179 yards. I mean, 2020, 198 carries. Now, this is when he got more carries, 841 yards, 4.26 touchdowns. 21 is when he started. It was a strange situation. He had 70, but he got injured in 21. If anybody remembers, he was injured. He had 386 yards, 4.9 was his average, 5 touchdowns. 22 and 23 was his worst years with Cleveland when they did all that changing on the offensive line, coaching, everything was different. 123 yards, 123 attempts, 3.8 and 3.0. But 3 touchdowns in 22, 9 touchdowns in 23. I, I'm not going to complain about that. And they
No,
didn't use him nearly as much in the passing game as we would have.
no, they especially the last couple of years, Cleveland has been a run first, sort of team, especially when Nick Chubb is running your team. I mean, Nick Chubb, the last couple years, has been one of the what has been a top 3, top 5 running back in all of the NFL. So yeah, when you're behind him, your opportunities are going to be limited. Yeah, but in terms of what does he bring here to the team, I'm not. I think that they're going to stick with Carson Steele as their main running back. I know he's listed as a fullback, but the guy's a running back. So I think that Carson Steele is going to be their guy, their number one running back, and I think that you're going to see Kareem Hunt be used more as a little bit of a change of pace, and then they're going to use P. Ryan in the Jerick McKinnon role. That's sort of the way that I see it. I don't think P. Ryan was ever brought here to be a running back, a straight up running back. He was more that receiving type, right? And that's just how he's been used his entire NFL career. Where I think that Kareem Hunt has sort of turned himself into a little bit of an insurance policy for this team. The big question for me is going to be, is he going to be able to suit up for Sunday? Because it's insane turnaround to try and get your life together here, move to a different city and then try and get ready for a football game. I mean, that's a
I
crazy
agree.
turnaround.
I agree. Again, it's a slim chance, but there is a chance we might see him in a uniform on Sunday. I understand why they would do it. They want to get his feet wet, and
Yeah.
if they can get him out there, they're going to do it. If they can't, it's a few days away. Honestly, he could have everything. They could have everything he owns shipped in a day, and he could just stay here and do what he has to do. So, I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, but they can. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I'm just happy he's back, and all the haters and the doubters that changed their Twitter handle and deleted all their tweets from when he was cut, and even last year and the year before. I know you're happy he's back. Get over yourself and move forward. Now we got to talk about something else. Um, let's bring up the left tackle real quick, and then we'll get into the Cincy game.
Okay.
I think, from what I've heard, they're going to stick with Kingsley, but they're also going to play Wanye Morris more.
It is a interesting. I don't think we've ever seen this in the Andy Reid era, where somebody wins the job, a rookie specifically wins the job, and then the second game in, he benches him. Rightfully so, might I add. That was the correct decision because he was getting his ass kicked.
Yeah, he was.
Ray Hendrickson, he was getting manhandled out there. So it was the right decision to do that. I'm not saying it wasn't. But to have that happen, and then in the post game show, and later on in the week when the media was meeting with him, I think yesterday, and they were asking him, "Hey, you know, you pulled Kingsley from the game, you put in Wanye Morris. Are you expecting Kingsley to be, the starting left tackle moving forward?" And he didn't give a direct answer, which is such an un-Andy Reid thing to, because usually what happens is Andy Reid would say, yeah, in the moment, we just we put Wanye in to settle it down. And now, we're moving forward with Kingsley. Kingsley's our guy. He did not do that.
No, he didn't. I've The one thing I will say is that I think they're gonna get him. They're gonna develop him more, which I understand. We knew going into this game he was going to have a tough time. That was just kind of a given. That guy is a beast. He played against a beast. Phillips said he needs to improve his body control. He does. Um, I think he's got the attributes to be able to continue on and be a great player in this league. But don't be surprised if we don't see an old familiar face back in Kansas City after the next week, after Sunday.
Are you talking about
If
Donovan
Sunday
Smith?
doesn't go with yes, if Sunday I can tell you this, if Sunday doesn't go as well as Andy wants it to go, you might see Donovan Smith back on the roster.
Well, and they've got some good pass rushers. They've got Matthew Judon, who they
Yep,
got from the Patriots. Like, here's the thing is that there are so many. I don't want to say elite pass rushers because I don't think that's true. But there's so many top edge rushers. There are so many just good quality edge rushers in this game. Is that really no matter unless you're facing the Carolina Panthers, you're going to be facing a good edge rusher every week.
agreed.
And when they saw, and a lot of these guys move around now, right? There's no such thing as a defensive edge rusher that just stays on the left side the entire game. That doesn't happen
Correct.
anymore.
Correct.
So when Kansas City goes up against the Raiders, for example, Max Crosby's going to line over the left tackle spot,
Absolutely.
right? And that's going to be when we face the Steelers in December, assuming that TJ Watt's healthy. TJ Watt's going to line up over this left tackle spot.
Mhm.
Like, this is not a problem that's going away. This is something that you need to figure out. And if it comes down to, we pulled him from the game because he was getting his ass kicked and Trey Hendrickson was just getting the best of him over and over and over again. And we just needed to settle the guy down. We're going to work on some technique stuff and we're going to move forward with that. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
If the solution is, hey, we know Kingsley, he's got high ceiling potential, but some of these advanced pass rush moves he just can't deal with. So we're going to put Wanye in there, even though we know that Kingsley is the left tackle for the future. I can live with that too, because sort of like when I said about the running back room, in order to solve this problem, this is not a September problem, right? That's a problem that you need to solve earlier if you're going to try and acquire different people in the room.
Agreed.
Right now, you've got two guys in the room who both, I feel comfortable with both of them. I don't even have a preference really either one. This is just something that we're going to have to keep an eye on for the rest of the year. And it really gets, I don't want to say blown up in your face, but you really take a microscope to it when your head coach, a guy who has been very defended of players in the past, benches a guy.
Well, you got to look at it from a different perspective, though. He was allowing a lot of pressure there on
He was
Mahomes,
he was getting his ass kicked.
and if it would have been any other quarterback, it may not be such a big deal. But it's Mahomes. Oh, by the way, happy birthday, Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand. I get why he pulled him. I get why he's evasive about answering the question because he just doesn't know yet. I mean, I don't know that that was Andy's 100% call to make him the starter. I think that was a combination of a few things to see how it goes and then move forward.
Well, and when we saw Wanye playing 4 games last year,
Yeah,
he was fine.
he was.
He wasn't fantastic. He wasn't horrible. He was fine, you know. And if you have the opportunity to make an upgrade, especially a cheap upgrade at a position as important as left tackle, then you should go about doing that. So yeah,
Exactly.
I up to this point, I have no problem with how the Chiefs have addressed this. Were you sitting down Kingsley because he kept getting? I mean, he was just getting bull rushed, and then Trey Hendrickson has really fast feet on the
Yes, he
outside,
does.
so he kept just like outpacing him to do some of those speed moves on the outside. I mean, he
Mhm.
was dominating him for play after play after play. So
I agree.
that was the correct decision. And I'll even go if you like I said if they want to start Wanye Morris over Kingsley, on Sunday, I got no problem with that because Matthew Judon, once again, has got a lot of similar trait. He's a very fast and very strong edge rusher.
Hmm.
So if that's what you want to do for that, then I can't say that it's the incorrect decision for that point either.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's going to happen. Wanye is going to start Sunday, so it, it is what it is. You just have to hope for the best, and if it doesn't work out, then you have to find somebody that does work out. We know
Yeah.
Donovan Smith is good at that position. We know he can handle pretty much everybody. They just went cheaper. Nobody else picked him up, so that's pretty good for us. Right now, he's sitting at home waiting. I'm
Hmm.
okay with that. If we need him later on down the line, we got him. Uh, Veach thinned out the offensive line room almost to a point of too thin. Because you remember, we had like what 9, 10 offensive linemen just sitting in the waiting. I mean, hell, we even had Howie Long's son there for a year that couldn't play because of a broken hand. But now he's kind of slimmed that down. He's spreading the wealth, I guess, to a degree. He's saving in some areas to spread it in others, and he signed he did
This
sign
is this team has the least depth on it than any of the other teams, and we're kind of seeing that now.
correct, correct.
Where in the past, Pacheco goes down, you feel good about some of the other guys. And while, Carson Steele, it's a fun story, but
Still a
there's
rookie.
no guarantee that, Carson Steele is going to be able to hold the rock for you. And I know that's a scary thought, but like, look, there are no Nick Allegrettis on this team anymore, right?
No, there's
Like
not.
some of these veteran backup type guys have all moved on. And so this is a very thin team. It's a very talented team, but it's a very thin team, and we're starting to see the problem with that. Uh,
Correct.
you know, we're going to talk about Hollywood Brown today, and the
Yep.
problem with that is that yeah, you came into this feeling really good about the wide receiver room, but now you've lost Hollywood Brown, and your wide receiver room is very similar to what it was last year.
Well, I can't say it's that. I mean, I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as it was last year. But I can see that if Hollywood was there, things would
It
definitely
would
be
be
different.
significantly different.
Yeah. And again, we don't know. Look, man, we can speculate all day long. We didn't see Hollywood in a Chiefs uniform in a regular season game. So we don't know how much different it would be or not. We thought things would be different last year with a couple of players, and it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, of course, and if you're looking at it from I guess, a broader perspective, you're going to say, yeah, he should be. It would be 100% different if he was out on the field. Let's
Yeah,
hope that, but we really don't know. I mean, we got a rookie wide receiver, we got a rookie running back. You know, losing Snead. I think on the defensive side of the ball, we do have depth in the CB room because they've all proven it.
that's true.
So we have depth in the linebacker area. They've all proven it. We got great safeties. We got a hell of a defensive line, and we got backups for that. We got depth there. It's on the offensive side of the ball that I think they went all in for speed. One of the speed guys is gone, and he's probably not coming. And I mean, there is a little bit of optimism now that he may be back in January. I'm not going to hold. I'm not going to hold anybody to that because if he's not back, he's not back. I wouldn't want to push him into that. If we don't need him, there's no reason to bring him back and
Yeah.
forbid he gets injured again.
I
But
don't I don't know if I've said this on this show or not. So if I'm repeating myself, I apologize, but I'm going to go ahead and say this.
well, you do that a lot though. It's Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But about 2 years ago I had shoulder surgery, right?
Yep.
And the problem is that when after you get shoulder surgery, it's a ball and socket joint. So it's still a very weak joint even
Yes, it
after
is.
they fix it.
Yep.
So it takes a lot of physical therapy to rebuild the muscle strength inside that shoulder.
That's right.
And now for me personally, even after completing the physical therapy and being, even months out after post surgery, there were still things that I just would not do because I did not trust the structural integrity of my shoulder.
Yeah.
So I bring this up because if you're Hollywood Brown and you have surgery, you go through your physical therapy and you're feeling good, you then have to get hit by 250-pound linebackers.
Exactly.
And if I didn't feel comfortable picking up a heavy object with my right arm, because I had shoulder surgery, at that point 6 months ago, is he going to feel good about his shoulder strength, while he's getting plowed by a 250-pound, safety or linebacker?
Correct.
Like it, and I know that's purely anecdotal, and there's no way that, we will ever really know the answer to that because he's not going to know the answer to that until game day. Like,
Yeah.
but I want to throw that out there because, the shoulder joint is just so finicky and it's once you have it surgically fixed, it's the weirdest feeling because you know it's fixed, you know it's good, but you just have like this sense in yourself that
There's
that
a metal
shoulder
block.
joint is not strong.
It's like your knees. It's no different than from your knees. When you have your knee operated on, or you have, whatever the case, MCL, whatever, you don't know whether that thing is going to be right again for a while.
You just don't trust it.
Correct. It's always in the back of your head, and that's just part of it. Uh, you just have to trust in your doctors and trust in your training staff, and hopefully trust in yourself as well. And I think he does. The one good thing I think is going to come out of this is that he's going to get another contract with the Chiefs.
You think so?
Yeah, pretty positive he'll get another contract because look, Andy's that type of guy. Veach is that type of guy. They really haven't seen him in a regular season game. They know what the potential is. I know Mahomes knows what the potential is with him. They want that
Right.
speed on the field. Why not give him another cheap contract and let him prove himself? So I think he'll be
Yeah.
back next year.
Especially if he misses, especially if he misses a good chunk of the year. I can't imagine that the asking price will be much different than what he got this year.
Correct.
So
So it's going to be a prove it type of deal. High reward, low risk. Why not do it?
yeah,
So
I think that that's probably best. Probably best for both parties. Uh, after he does make his comeback, and that's the other thing that I will say. At least it's a shoulder injury and not a lower extremity injury,
yes,
because when you start talking about like knees and Achilles and really just the lower legs in general, um, that's when you start to worry about things like explosiveness.
correct.
Whereas a shoulder, there's a chance of re-injuring that joint, but you're not worried about sort of that other physical part of playing the wide receiver position.
Correct. I mean, you don't have the body weight coming down on it all the time. You don't have
Right.
all those things that can jack it up. Anyway, let's talk about this Cincy game, man.
Yeah. I actually, one of the things that I wanted
Okay.
to talk about the Jamar Chase blow up.
Oh, we got that.
Yeah. So it is, if you want to run the clip.
Yeah, run that clip.
I still just don't know what happened here.
Well,
I
I do. I found out what happened, but it's actually stupid. But I mean, he was just a complete lunatic, and I think most of it came from the fact that he was just being manhandled all game, and it finally just came to a head for him. I mean, he had no yards, he had no catches, he had nothing. Um, there was nothing that McDuffie did to warrant that.
Yeah,
Nothing.
because usually what happens when you get a player that blows up like that, usually there's a missed horse collar or a face mask, or like a defender will come in and maybe they poke him in the eye,
Yeah,
not intentionally,
yeah.
like stuff like there's something that happens beforehand, and that's when the player blows up. I've seen that clip so many times. I cannot figure out why he
There's
blew up.
nothing there. What is there? And from what I understand, the ref, if it's true, which apparently it is, um, the ref told him, "You don't like it? Get the fuck out of my face." That's exactly what the ref said to him. And that's what set him over the edge even more. He was cussing at the ref, which pissed the ref off.
Well, you could see that, yeah.
Yeah, and then the ref said, "Get the fuck out of my face." And that did him in. You actually see, if you watch the entire clip, you'll see him tell him, "Get the fuck out of my face." Right there. "Get the fuck out of my
Yeah.
face." And that just did him in. I mean, he was already pissed off because he was getting manhandled the entire game. McDuffie just put him on clamp down, and that was the end of it. He was, it just, I think it just finally did him in. He tried to say that McDuffie did something wrong, which he didn't. And the clip shows that. But hey, man, you know what? These refs take a lot of shit.
Yeah,
They
they
take
do.
it from the fans, they take it from the players, they take it from coaches. There's no, I mean, and not to mention the fact that that's the same ref that handed Chase that bullshit penalty when he pulled McDuffie down. I mean, I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that wasn't a penalty on McDuffie. Chase should have been penalized for that.
Yeah, the defensive pass interference.
Correct.
Yeah.
But they gave it to Chase. And if you watch it, I mean, it's very clear that he pulled McDuffie down. They were both looking at the ball. They were both handsy. If anything, you could have said, okay, it's offsetting penalties, but he called it against McDuffie. So for Chase to blow up in the same guy's face that just handed him a huge penalty, I think it was ref was just done with it. And Chase had been running his mouth, from what I heard, had been running his mouth a lot during that game.
No
So
surprise there.
yeah,
Well, and I think you figure it also just has to deal with, his contract situation and all of that boiling over. And maybe that was just one of the straw that broke the camel's back situations, and
could
it
have been.
just all erupted out of him like a volcano. But
But the
yeah,
whole thing is, though, he's a year early on this contract that he wants so badly.
I know.
So he's playing this diva role and wanting to be paid more than Jefferson, but he can't get 35 yards against a corner.
Yeah.
So look, man, I mean, take what you get. Be happy that you're in the NFL and don't act like a little bitch, because you're going to get treated like one. And that ref just bitched him, and he deserved it. I tell you what, I heard he left the locker room, realized that he was in Kansas City, and came back. And I guess he got a lot of flack in that locker room from his teammates. So, and he deserved it. A buddy of mine was listening and heard the yelling going on in the locker room. So he said McDuffie's only allowed 6 receptions for 33 yards on 9 targets against Chase in his career. That's pretty sad. I mean, for a guy to look, man, you got to respect the game. The guy, McDuffie's good at what he does. He's one of the best in the league. He's shut down every single top wide receiver in this game in 2 years.
Well, and the other thing is that just after, if you exclude his rookie year, Chase's rookie year, that first game against Kansas City, after that, Chase has been, I mean, he's gotten catches, but he sort of like, this week where it's like, yeah, he'll get a few catches, but he's not going to
He
have
doesn't
that
control a
big
game. Yeah, he doesn't
Yeah.
control the game.
Right. Whereas in that first game, he had 234 yards against the Chiefs, and he just walked all over everybody.
Yep.
He hasn't done anywhere near that. They refuse to let him be the one that beats him.
Yep, I agree. And he, look, man, I mean, that game, that was a strange game from start to finish. I knew it was going to be, well, I didn't think it was going to be that close, but I knew it was going to be a physical game. I knew it was going to be a rivalry type of game. I didn't know that the refs were going to be so blind to a lot of things. And they were blind on both sides. I'm not going to just say they were only blind against, but there was a lot of penalties, a lot of holds, a lot of things that were missed, a lot of things that were called wrong. On both sides of the ball, there was a lot of them against the Chiefs that should have been called and weren't. I mean, we got clips of it. We got clips. There was 3 holds that you can, I mean, Helen Keller could have saw those holds, but yet they didn't call them. Now, on the flip side of that, Kingsley was
he was basically tackling Trey. Yeah, he was WWE slamming Trey Hendrickson.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, he had clotheslined him. He had done everything he could. He was choking him. And I get it to a degree, because you couldn't control you couldn't control the narrative. In fact, you had no control over it. But that should have been called too. So these refs, if you're going to call a game, at least, and you're going to make mistakes on it, at least be even about it.
Yeah.
And they weren't. So on either side of the ball, they just weren't. You see a lot of people complain, and hell, I mean, Trey Wingo, Tom Pelissero, they've all tagged me and stuff on Chiefs Focus. I guess the whole Chiefs get all the calls narrative is out the window. Well, you're right. It is. It's been out the window. They've never gotten all the calls. This isn't the Tom Brady era of referees. They don't get the calls that they just think they're going to get. Mahomes gets blasted out of bounds. He doesn't get called twice. There's numerous times last year that he got hit out of bounds and never got a call. So it's got to be more of an evenly called, even if it's poorly called, it's got to be even.
Well, my stance on this is that I think, complaining about the reps, as a reason to justify your team's loss is
correct.
a loser mentality.
Correct. It's
And
wrong.
so I just don't abide by. I don't
Well,
abide by
but
that.
every team that plays us, man, no matter
I
how you
know,
look at it, every team that plays us, the refs give us the game. The NFL
and
wants
they're
Mahomes to win,
losers.
and they're all losers. That's a loser mentality. It's a loser way of thinking things, a loser way of approaching life. If you approach football that way and you don't even play it, how do you approach life?
I know there were like listening to some post game calls in Cincinnati. Um, yeah, just listen, hearing all this the stupid crap, the coping
There was
that they would do.
there was a guy that does I guess he's a reporter for Cincinnati, and he was on Twitter, and the last line of his sentence was, "Well, you know how they treat Kansas City, the Golden Boys." So I finally messaged him back, and I said, "Dude, you sound like a fucking loser. I mean, you really do. That's a loser mentality to have. If you're going to sit and complain about that, and every game we played you guys has been 3 points or less, seriously, man, you can't live like that." He didn't even respond. I think he deleted his tweet because he looks stupid. I mean, you got guys, national announcers there that are saying these things. You know, these guys that are somewhat prominent in the NFL, and they're saying these things. It's just dumb. It's just a stupid thing to say. I post it because I want to get under somebody's skin. I'll post it and say, "Yeah, the Chiefs get all the calls. Didn't they get all the calls, right?" And people respond to it, good or bad. They respond to it. But I do it for a reason. We don't get all the calls. We still win, but we don't get all the calls.
And I think here's my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory.
Uh-oh.
That's not really a conspiracy theory, but I think that the reason why teams and fan bases and whatnot say that Kansas City gets all the calls because Kansas City is good enough to take advantage for when they get the call.
Absolutely.
So
Thank
when
God.
so when there's a deep pass interference down the field and it's late in the game and they get a pass interference call and then they kick a field goal off of it or they score a touchdown off of it, it's because that the team is good enough to take advantage of the fact that they got good field position. They would have done the
Absolutely.
same thing if they would have had a really good punt return that it put them right there. You
Well,
know,
okay, Quentin, how many quarterbacks do you, I mean, we've seen it for years and years. Quarterbacks will automatically try to draw a flag. Why do you think they go deep on 3rd and 27? Why do you think they go deep on 3rd and 4?
yeah,
I mean, there's a reason why they do it because there's a 70% chance you're going to get a flag out of that, especially when the game is tight and it's towards end of the fourth quarter or middle of the fourth quarter. You go deep, you hope you get that flag, and if you're good enough as a quarterback and a wide receiver that practice that every fucking day in camp and every day in practice, you practice to get those flags drawn. If we're good enough to take advantage of a dumbass DB that decides to be a backpack to a wide receiver.
that's the other thing is if you're gonna play picket fence defense and you're gonna put a brand new guy, a rookie, the sixth corner on the roster, and you're
Exactly.
gonna put him out on the field, what are you expecting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you didn't expect that to happen, he was 5 yards too quick. If you really watch the play and you time it correctly, he was 5 yards too soon. That's simple. You cannot jump on a guy's back when the ball hasn't even
And
left. I mean,
and the narrative that people were pushing that that it was like a ticky tack call. I was like,
come
how
on,
is
man.
that that is pass interference. Let's break this word down. He interfered with the pass.
Yeah, it's pretty simple to see. And the whole thing, it's just like the guys that say, "I don't want Patrick Mahomes on my team." You fucking liar. There's not.
Yeah.
I had a San Francisco 49ers, kind of a bigger fan, I guess, to the fan page. I don't know what he is. He said, "Well, I wouldn't want him on my team." I said, I said, "That's an absolute lie. And you just told everybody in the free world on X that you're lying. You'd trade every single player on your team if you got Patrick Mahomes right now."
Yeah.
That's just, it is what it is. You can't, you can't expect fans to not act stupid, especially the young ones. Hell, some of the older ones that act young, and you also can't expect them to um, understand the game of football. and how it actually works. If they can't respect how good Mahomes is, how good Andy is, how good Spags is, Chris Jones, Leo Chenal, then you don't need to be watching football. You can't be upset because you don't have as good a coach. That's like an Eagles fan bitching about last night.
Oh, jeez.
Let's talk about that. Nick Sirianni's got to be the dumbest fucking head coach I've ever seen. You got to be beginning of the game. He's constantly making mistakes. This is the first year that he's actually had to call plays, though. So if you have to call plays and you're doing it wrong, you shouldn't be calling them. He wrote a business plan basically to keep his job for this year, and everything he put in that business plan is apparently a lie because he made some major mistakes last night and lost to a team that he shouldn't have lost to. Let's just be real about it.
His fourth down decisions, like whether to go for it or not go for it, it just seems arbitrary. It doesn't seem like that there's a thought out process. Like, okay, if we're in this sort of scenario, we're gonna go for it. If it's in this scenario, we're gonna run the ball, or we're gonna punt it. And the other
Yeah.
thing is that, first of all, I mean, I've made my displeasure felt far and wide for many a city fan bases. New York, well, mainly just Yankees fans. Boston and
Any East Coast
Philadelphia.
fans are tough. The East Coast fans are they're just wrong.
It's really those cities, you know. Yeah, and Eagles fans, like when you're the guy that boos Santa, I don't want to be friends with you.
Absolutely not. Hey man, if you're going to win a championship and burn your own city down, and then burn your city down because you missed
And eat
winning the
horse
championship,
crap.
yeah, come on, man. I mean, you got to be. There's got to be something wrong with you mentally to want to burn. I mean, look, they had to grease the friggin' light poles so people wouldn't climb them and
Yeah,
tear up shit. I mean, that's sad. No matter how you look at it, when the city has to spend money to go out there and grease flagpoles and board up bus stops, and hopefully nobody has their car on the street because you're going to catch it on fire.
or
That's
eat
sickening.
horse.
Yeah, yeah. What the hell? I mean, how do you do that to your own city? I don't know. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. They're going to have to figure out something with
They're
Nick
not making the
Sirianni.
playoffs this year.
I don't think so. I don't think they are.
That is a bad defense.
It's a horrible defense. It's a horrible defense. Look, when Kirk Cousins can go out there and shred you like they did, like he
In
did,
like 60 seconds.
yeah. Oh my God. I mean, I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is a bad quarterback because he's not. He's been paid a lot of money to be good, but he's not. He's not Josh Allen good. He's not Mahomes good. He's probably the 10th best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, he's a slightly above average quarterback.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. They're gonna have a lot of struggles for the rest of the year when they play tough teams. Woo, it's gonna be hard.
Oh
It's
yeah,
gonna be hard for them.
that
But
team's
look
gonna
what
fall
happened to the
apart.
Cowboys. Let's talk about the Cowboys. Dak just got his contract, lost 44-13. Damn. Damn.
I think the conversation is not look at Dallas. I think the conversation is look at New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Because
another thing you can say.
that's a team that we have to play them on Monday night.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be that's gonna be interesting. I mean, I hope our defense is ready to go for that game. Because I think Derek Carr has a little bit of a vendetta against us as it is, because we shredded him for most of his career. But that team looks good. I mean, they look pretty damn good. I don't know what happened to Dallas. But they usually do that type of game either in the playoffs or the last game of the season.
Well, they literally did the exact same thing last year against the Cardinals. I don't know if you remember that, except this time it was in Arizona.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys just got ripped apart by the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So,
That's right. And the Cardinals shouldn't have been ripping anybody apart at that point.
no.
So I don't know, dude. It's gonna be this is play better than the teams that everybody expects to play good.
Well,
You know, the
offensive scoring is down from this year, from the 2 weeks into the season this year for last year, right? If you
yeah,
compare the two seasons, there are 20 less passing touchdowns between the 2 years.
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So
Anyway, getting back to what we were talking about, we just got off on a tangent there. What were we talking about? We
well,
just
we
jumped
finished.
around.
I think we finished talking about Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati. We
Would
did have some
you?
other highlights there, but I mean, I think that game, those games are always going to be tough. There's two teams that play us tough, tougher than I think anybody else, and that's the Ravens and Cincinnati.
Well, one of
Even the
them's not making the playoffs. So
yeah, very true.
statistically speaking, only 11% of teams who have started 0-2 have made the playoffs.
Yep.
Which means one of those two teams is not making the playoffs.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to venture to say that it's the Ravens.
Yeah.
I don't think they're making the playoffs. I think they're in turmoil. I don't think they have the offensive weapons. I don't think Lamar wants to throw the ball, which he's made that very clear he doesn't. But I think the Ravens are going to be the one that doesn't make it out of those two.
And let's be honest, there's a chance that neither of them make the playoffs.
Very true. Very true. I mean, there's teams. Look, man, I mean, the Ravens lost to the Raiders.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, dude. I think they got some shit going on there that nobody really knows about. But I think it's going on, and I think it's gonna hurt them in the long run for the rest of the season. I think it's in his head now. And I think he sees it. I think Harbaugh sees it. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough season for them. Anyway, what else we got?
I think that's everything that I have. I think we hit because we'll talk about the Atlanta game on Thursday.
Okay. Well, Kareem Hunt's back.
Oh yeah.
Look at that picture. Oh my God. Wow.
So
That's
so
hilarious.
that is the kid from Elf.
Yeah.
And
How's that
Nick
possible
Sirianni.
that they look so much alike?
Yeah.
That's insane. That's freaking insane. Look at that. Holy crap. Is that his? That's not his son, is it?
No. It's
Okay.
just
Trying to find
he's
out.
got a child's face.
Wow. I mean, he acts like a child.
I know. I can't
He's
wait
got a
till he
child's
gets
face.
fired.
Oh, you know what? The way Rosen
He's
is,
such
that
an
might happen
asshole.
mid-season. He is an asshole. That might happen mid-season, man. He might get his ass launched right mid-season. I got a feeling I don't know if I've seen, other than Nathaniel Hackett, which really isn't a bad head coach, he just got thrown into a bad situation. I think Sirianni is probably one of the worst head coaches I've ever seen. I say that because his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator got him to a Super Bowl with a very weak schedule, by the way. He doesn't call his own plays, and this year that he finally has to, he's making giant mistakes. I mean, game-losing mistakes. I don't know, dude. I got a feeling I give him until probably week 6, 7, and I bet he's out.
It's just going to take one massive blow up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all it's going to take. What do you think's going to happen with Chase? Before we go, I heard that Cincinnati is really double thinking signing him again. Like giving him an extension.
Yeah.
I've heard that from multiple sources, people in Cleveland and in Cincinnati, in Ohio, period, that are close to both teams. I'm related to one of them. And I've heard that they are not very happy with his situation.
I mean,
With him, period.
I look, they are, we talk about the Raiders and how the Raiders struggle to have the cash on hand to put stuff in escrow accounts to pay these big contracts, right? Well, Cincinnati's in a very similar situation.
They are.
To where the ownership group does not have a lot of cash on hand to put money in an escrow account. For those that don't know, when an owner hands out a contract they have to put a certain percentage of it up of the guaranteed money in what's called an escrow account, which
Yep.
basically is, hey, if I'm guaranteeing you, $50 million, X percent of that $50 million, I have to put into a bank account right now
I think it's
at the
30%.
moment of sign. I don't know the percentage,
I want to say it's 30%.
but I have to put X amount of that into a bank account right here, right now, which is why there are some owners that do not give away a ton of guaranteed money at the pen to paper moment because
Yep.
they don't have the cash on hand in order to make those deals happen right away.
And when I say they can thank Burrow for that, and everybody says, "Well, his contract didn't kick in yet," doesn't really matter because the owner just forked up a huge percentage of his guaranteed money. Just because his contract didn't kick in doesn't mean that owner doesn't have to do it as soon
Yeah,
as he
it's
signs that
the
contract.
whatever the guaranteed money when the paper is signed,
That's right.
a chunk of that has to go into a bank account.
Absolutely.
And so if you're Jamar Chase and you want to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, even if it's just a dollar in front of Justin Jefferson, look what the Vikings just gave Justin Jefferson, and that you're talking about a very big contract. Plus, you have to have cash on hand to do other stuff, and to sign other guys and to pay
Exactly.
out other contracts.
Exactly.
So, not to I don't want this to turn into let's cry for the billionaire, but it is just the finances of doing football deals.
Yeah, it's not
And
like
that
you got, just because you sign a contract or you give somebody an extension, it doesn't kick in. You got to have money in the bank. You got to have
you do.
cash on hand.
You have to put it. It's called an escrow account.
Exactly. And you have to have that money to be able to put in there. He said Chase was hoping Burrow would take less so he could get paid early. Absolutely, he was. Absolutely, he was. And in fact, that was a conversation that Chase had publicly about that. He publicly said that. And then he turned around and he said, "Well, if it comes down to me or T, probably gonna have to be me." Well, right now
Right.
they're considering T over you, so you better humble yourself down really quick because you're not Justin Jefferson. You're just not.
No.
So I think that team by the end of the season, there's going to be a lot of changes that people, especially Cincinnati fans, aren't expecting. I think their window's already kind of closed.
Especially if if they flutter out, let's say they miss the playoffs again because they're 0-2 and a significant chunk of those teams don't make the playoffs. And let's say they don't make the playoffs again back to back years, right? And they need to start making some decisions about what are they going to do moving forward. I could see them trying to do one of those soft blowups in order to do one of those faster rebuilds. So you trade away a Jamar Chase for significant draft capital. Try and do
Yeah,
what Kansas City did with Tyreek Hill, something like that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I could see that happening, especially because it would save money on the back end.
Well, let's think about this. That's if you look at Patrick Mahomes' contract, that's the most genius thing that they could have done. Yes, they gave him a $500,000, but his guaranteed money was like 156 million.
Yeah, the thing with his contract though is it's built like the old Ezekiel Elliott contract to where it guarantees 2 years in advance. So
Absolutely, but I'm
Patrick
saying
Mahomes,
the money up front when they signed Mahomes was minimal compared to the length of his contract
yeah,
and the amount of his contract.
right.
So Clark Hunt was very smart because that escrow money was minimal compared to what not only he's drawn in for the Chiefs in the first 2 years of his contract, but how long his contract is stretched out. I mean, it's a 10. It's going to be nobody else is going to be able to do that contract.
No, it takes an organization that's willing to do it. It takes a general manager. There's a lot of trust that has to go there.
Absolutely, on
The
both
head
sides.
coach, the head coach has to trust the quarterback. The quarterback has to trust the head coach.
And the
Everybody, the
ownership.
GM has to trust the quarterback and the head. Like there has to be this universal trust among all parties involved, all four parties between player slash agent, head coach, general manager, and ownership to be able to make that work. It is such a
Absolutely.
unique spot for Kansas City to be in.
And you have to, I mean, you got to think about it. I mean, the quarterback really has to trust the ownership, the coach, the GM, everybody involved. I don't know of another owner, ownership group or general manager, coaching organization, staff, period, that a quarterback can say, yeah, I would do that deal with you.
You're right.
Because there's too much turnover with every other team in the league. The
Yeah.
only team that's other than Pittsburgh, maybe Pittsburgh would do it. But you still have to find somebody who would actually trust general manager and the head coach, regardless if he's a
Well,
17-year-old
and you would,
year
and in
coach.
that case, you'd have to have an offensive coordinator that you feel confident is going to be there for the next X amount of years too. Because with
Correct.
Mike Tomlin, he's a defensive head coach. Part of the benefit of Andy Reid is that he is that offensive mind, and so you can build trust better with your quarterback there.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be an interesting year. Now we got Kareem back. I'm happy. Let's see what happens. Oh, quick
Yeah.
thoughts on the Dolphins Bills game. Will wants to know. Quick thoughts. Dolphins Bills game.
Quick thoughts. Dolphins are missing the playoffs. I feel bad for Tua. And the Bills are once again a scary, regular season team.
I agree with that. I think the Dolphins. I feel bad for Tua. Somebody
He
brought
was
up.
put on IR today.
Yeah, I know it. Actually, it was put on IR yesterday. They did it yesterday, and the one thing that I was thinking about with that, it's not a bad idea that they did it. That was smart. Not only gives them time because they signed Snoop Huntley off of the Ravens practice squad.
Well, first of all, they've got K-State alum Skylar Thompson, who's going to be running that offense. Okay.
For now, yeah, for now. I think it was a good idea because it gives them time. It gives him time to decide what he wants to do. They can do all the medicals that they need to do to make sure he doesn't have some type of neurological issue that will cause him major harm or death later on. And that's something that you really have to think about. And he has to think about that. But the one thing that people, everybody on Twitter, well, he needs to retire. He might as well quit. You can't tell him that.
Yeah.
You can't tell him that. The last thing he needs to hear is that, first of all, from a bunch of damn couch potatoes. But the only people that are going to be able to convince him of what he needs to do is his doctor and his family and himself. Nobody else can convince him. But nobody needs to hear, well, he's a piece of shit. He needs to retire. Should he retire? Is that probably a thing? Absolutely. I mean, he's five concussions since 2022. And some of those were so bad that it locked his hands up. He didn't know where he was at. He fell down. He got up and fell back down. I don't know, man. I think he should, but that's on him. That's what he needs to decide. He's 26 years old. He's not a 35-year-old quarterback. He's 26. That's really hard for somebody that's been in competitive sports to walk away from something you really love because of that. Regardless.
Especially when a lot of your big money hasn't kicked in yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's
He's
like,
got
yeah,
a fat injury guarantee, but that doesn't mean anything. I
right.
mean, it's just
especially if he's medically cleared to play and then
Yeah.
he chooses to retire.
Exactly. That's going to be, and see, that's Miami's thought process behind this. If that gives him time to see if he's medically cleared. If he is, and he decides to retire, then that injury money goes away. He gets whatever he gets for this year, and that's it. He doesn't get to keep his contract. There's no retirement guarantee. It's injury guarantee. So, and believe me, that owner in Miami doesn't give a shit about him. He ain't going to pay him $1 more than he has to. We'll have to see. I mean, it's rough. I think the Bills are struggling too, though. I think they're going to struggle this year. They don't have the offensive weapons they used to have. And I think when they go up and play some tougher teams, some tougher defenses, they're going to see it. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But with that being said, do you have anything else?
No, that's it. We'll talk Chiefs Falcons on Thursday.
Yep.
Same time, same place.
We'll be here. Peace out, everybody.